Okay, so this is Unit 5, Factoring and Solving. Before we start solving and factoring, let's go back to what we know. We know that the standard form of a quadratic looks like this. So guys, they gave you factors here. Everyone call this factors. These two items are called factors. And we know how to multiply them out. We're going to go from factored form, where they're in parentheses, to standard form, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. X times x is x squared. X times 5 is 5x. Now we're going to do the 3. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times 5 is 15. Okay, we're almost at standard form. Do you guys know what I'm going to do next? Yes, combine like terms. So I'm going to combine this middle part. So I have x squared, 5x plus 3x is 8x plus 15. So now it is in standard form, okay? So what we just did is we went from factored form, where we have factors, to standard form, okay? Now, I want you guys to notice these numbers, 5 and 3. Do you guys see how 5 plus 3 is 8, but 5 times 3 is 15? Do you guys see that? Okay, so that's important. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be thinking of two numbers that add to something and multiply to something else, okay? So we want things to multiply to the C value, because remember guys, this is A, B, and C. So 5 times 3 gave us 15, but if we add 5 and 3, we would get this B value, 8. Okay? All right, so we're going to use the same type of thinking. We're going to be thinking of two numbers that will add to B, but multiply to C. And that's 5 and 3. Okay, let's look at an example of factoring. Let's look at example 1. I want two numbers that add to the B value, but multiply to the C value. Can y'all think of two numbers that multiply to 12, but add to 7? Yep, 4 and 3. 4 times 3 is 12. 4 plus 3 is 7. So those are my factors, x plus 4 and x plus 3. That's your answer. These are your factors. Now, you don't have to write this down. I just want to show you. If you multiply this out, we'll get our original equation again. X times x is x squared. X times 3 is 3x. Now I'm going to do the next one. 4 times x is 4x. 4 times 3 is 12. And look, those are our two numbers that we said. What's 3 plus 4? 7. You see how we got the original thing back? Okay, so guys, this is standard form, and this is factored form. Okay, we're doing factored form today. All right, let's do the next problem. I want two numbers that multiply to 20, but add to 12. Yep, 10 and 2. 2 times 10 is 20. 2 plus 10 is 12. So the factored form will be x plus 2 and x plus 10. These are your factors. Please write it down. These are called factors. When they're in parentheses like that, those are called factors. And if you want it to go back to standard form, you can just multiply it back out. Next one, I need two numbers that multiply to 12, but add to -7. Yes. So guys, I wrote a note at the top of your page that a negative times another negative is positive. Okay? So in this case, to get a positive 12, we did a negative and a negative. Negative 4 times negative 3 is 12, but if you add them, you'll get negative 7. So my factors are x minus 4 and x minus 3. Okay? Next, number 4. Something that I want to remind you of. A negative times a positive is what? A negative. So guys, I want a negative 18. I need two numbers that multiply to negative 18. One of them will have to be negative, the other one needs to be positive. What are my numbers? Perfect. Negative 2 times a positive 9 is negative 18. When you add them together, you'll get 7. So my factors are x minus 2 and x plus 9. Those are my factors. All right, I'm going to go down to number 10. I need two numbers that multiply to 9, add to negative 6. Remember this rule up here. A negative times a negative will give me a positive. So what two numbers will give me 9? Yes, negative 3 times negative 3. Negative 3 times negative 3 is 9, and if you add them, you'll get negative 6. So the factors for number 10 are x minus 3 and x minus 3. And since I have two of them, I can also just write it like this. X minus 3 squared. You have them twice. Okay, so that's the simplified version. All right, number 5, 6, and 7. What do you guys notice about numbers 5, 6, and 7? Yes, there's no b value. Okay, guys, remember standard form is ax squared, which they have. They all have an ax squared. They do not have a bx, but they do have a c. So they're missing a b value. So guys, that means for number 5, I need two numbers that will multiply to negative 25, but add to 0. Can you think of them? 5 and negative 5. 5 times negative 5 is negative 25, but 5 minus 5 is 0. So this will be x plus 5 times x minus 5. Those are your factors. Number 6. I want two numbers that multiply to negative 4, but combine to 0. Someone knew this time. Yes, 2 and negative 2. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4, but if you add them or subtract them, you get 0. So this will be x plus 2 and x minus 2. I'm going to let you guys do number 7 on your own. You're going to think of two numbers that multiply to negative 36, add to 0. Notice, guys, whenever you have a b value and a negative c value, it's always going to be the same number, but same number twice, just opposite. A positive 5 and a negative 5. Here it was a positive 2 and a negative 2. It's going to be the same number, just opposite signs. Okay? So I'm going to let you guys do number 7. Now, let's move on to solving. What we did here is called factoring. These are all factors. Now we're going to be solving. Okay, so first we need to make sure that it's in standard form and that it's equaling to 0. And some vocabulary that we need to know is solutions can also be called x-intercepts, zeros, and roots. All of these mean the same thing. So when I ask you, what is the solution? I'm asking you, what are the x-intercepts? Where it doesn't touch the x-axis. That's what I'm asking you. And step 1 is to factor, which we just learned how to do. So guys, let's do I believe we already did number 1. What were the two numbers that multiplied to 12 but added to 7? Yes, 4 and 3. So our factors were x plus 4 and x plus 3. So guys, these are my factors. I don't want you to factor right now. I want you to solve. We're solving now. Okay? So in order to solve, step 2, you just set each factor equal to 0. So x plus 4 is a factor, set it equal to 0. X plus 3 is a factor, set it equal to 0. That's step number 2. Set each one to 0. And then you solve. How do I get x by itself over here? What do I subtract? I'm going to subtract 4, subtract 4. So I get x equals negative 4. Because 0 minus 4 is negative 4. The next one, it's over here now. X equals negative 3. You just solve. So that's your answers. So guys, draw an arrow to these two answers. These are called solutions. These are called factors. When they're in the parentheses, those are factors. When you solve, you get solutions. Do you guys see the difference? It's important that you know the difference because sometimes on the test, people will say, or it might say, what are the solutions? And then they just give me the factors. Okay? All right, I'm not going to do number 2. Let's do number 3. Is this in standard form? So I have negative 6 on this side. This is not in standard form. So I'm going to move that over here. So I have x squared plus 5x. When I move it, what happens to the sign? It would be plus 6. So guys, I'll need two numbers that multiply to 6, add to 5. So 1 times 6 is 6, but those don't add to 5. But yeah, 2 and 3 work. 2 times 3 is 6, 2 plus 3 is 5. So this is the winning numbers. These are the winning numbers. So my factors are x plus 2 and x plus 3. So guys, label it. These are your factors. If I want the solutions, set them equal to 0 and solve. So x plus 2 equals 0 and x plus 3 equals 0. All right, so we just solve. Subtract 2, you get x equals negative 2. That's your first solution. Your other one, subtract 3, you get x equals negative 3. And that's it. All right, I'm going to do number 4 because this one's a hard one. Okay, so this x squared, I'm going to move it to this side. This 3x, I'm going to move it to this side. Okay, so let's just write what we have. On this side, I have 2x squared plus 7x minus 12. We're going to move this x squared over. When I move it, what happens? The sign changes, so it'll be a minus x squared. When I move this 3x over, what happens? Minus 3x. Now we're just going to combine like terms. So let me highlight for you. This is an x squared, and this is an x squared. So let's combine them. You can think of this. You can think of this as a minus 1 right here. So guys, what is 2 minus 1? It's just 1. So that'll just be x squared. You don't have to put the 1 in front. Now we're going to continue combining like terms. What is 7x minus 3x? 4x. So this will be plus 4x. And then there's only one number, so minus 12. And now you just continue. Find two numbers that would multiply to negative 12, add to 4. What are they? Yep, negative 2 and 6. So those are your factors, x minus 2 and x plus 6. And then set them equal to 0 and solve. So these are your factors. To find the solutions, you'll do x minus 2 equals 0. So that means x is 2 for this one. And then x plus 6 equal to 0. That means x is negative 6. Okay. I'm going to do one last example, okay? One last example, and then I'm done. Let's do, I'm not going to do this one. We just did that. I'm going to do, what if I have 3x plus 12, 3x squared plus 12x plus 18. Whenever I have a number bigger than 1 right here, you need to divide. Okay, so I'm going to divide all of these by 3. So I get x squared plus 4x plus 6. Actually, let's make this a 5. Okay, 15 divided by 3, this will be a 5. Okay, so let's say that's my answer, my question. This is not on your paper, by the way. This is just an example. So I divided everything by 3, and now this is what I have. Now the process is the same. 2 numbers that multiply to 6, guys. -1 and 5. Oh, but that gives me a -6. I want a +6. How about 2 and 3? 2 times 3 is 6, but 2 plus 3 is 5. Y'all see that? Okay, so these are my factors. X plus 2 and x plus 3. And since I divided by 3 in the beginning, just put a 3 on the outside. I can't do -1 and 6 because that would be a -6. I want +6. Yeah. Okay, so these would be your factors. If I divided everything by 3 in the beginning, you need to put a 3 on the outside, okay? In your solutions, you'll still set the factors to 0. So x plus 2 equals 0. Solve it, you get x equals -2. And then x plus 3 equals 0. Solve it, you'll get x equals -3. Okay, so those would be your solutions. These are your solutions. And this is your factors. These are your factors. Okay, all right, I'm going to end here. One thing that I want to add, it's a question that I get a lot, is how do I know what 2 numbers will multiply to something and add to something else? So let's say 14. And you're just confused on how to find my numbers. Well, you can always go down the list. Start with 1. 1 times 40 will give you 40. Then go to the next number, 2. 2 times 20 will give you 40. I can't do 3, but 4. 4 times 10 will give you 40. 5 times 8 will give you 40. Okay, I'm just going to stop there for now. Which one of these numbers, if you add them together, will give you 14? And the answer is this one. Okay, let's try something else. Let's say it's 45 or -45, and I want them to add to -5. Well, just list your factors. I know 1 times a -45 will give you -45. I can also do this way. I can do 3 times 15, or -3 times a +15. I can do 5 times a -9, or -9 times 5. Sorry, I meant to make this a 4. Okay, so which one of these multiply together to give you -45, but add to give you -4? And the answer is this last one right here. So that's how you can figure out your numbers. Just make a list and figure out which ones are good.